Fleet Admiral Kexton stood before the massive viewing screen in his command center. The stars outside looked peaceful, but soon they would witness another victory for the Valtharian Empire. His gray skin showed the marks of many battles, and his 4 eyes gleamed with confidence. Today would be different from other wars. Today would be easy. The war room buzzed with activity. Officers moved between glowing displays, checking weapons and ship positions. The fleet stretched for miles in all directions, over 300 warships ready for battle. This was enough firepower to destroy entire worlds, but Kexton did not expect to need it all. Captain Velmore approached with a datapad in his clawed hands. His younger face showed excitement mixed with nervousness. "Admiral, the final reports on the target world are ready." Kexton took the pad and studied the information. The third planet from their target star was called Earth by its inhabitants. The creatures living there called themselves humans. According to the intelligence reports, they were a young species that had barely learned to travel between planets. "Tell me what we know," Kexton said, his deep voice carrying across the room. Other officers stopped their work to listen. Belmore straightened his uniform. "The humans have only recently developed basic spaceflight, sir. They use primitive chemical rockets that move very slowly. Their weapons are mostly kinetic. They throw metal projectiles using chemical explosions. Some have nuclear devices, but these are crude and limited." Commander Ziltek, an older officer with battle scars on his arms, stepped forward. "What about their military structure, Captain?" "Very disorganized, sir," Velmore replied. "The planet is divided into nearly 200 separate nations. They fight among themselves constantly. In fact, they have been at war with each other for most of their recorded history. Our scouts report active conflicts happening right now in several regions." Kexton nodded with satisfaction. A divided enemy was a weak enemy. The Valtharian Empire had conquered dozens of worlds, but most of those civilizations had been united under single governments. The humans could not even agree among themselves. "Their technology level?" asked another officer. "Approximately 400 years behind our current capabilities," Velmore answered. "They still burn fossil fuels for energy in many areas. Their computers are large and slow. Most of their population has no access to advanced medical treatments. They are in every way a primitive species." The war room filled with confident chatter. Several officers made jokes about how quickly the humans would surrender. Some began placing bets on how many days the invasion would take. The mood was celebratory, as if the battle had already been won. Ziltek raised a concern. "Sir, there is one unusual reading in the reports. The planet's gravity appears to be significantly higher than most inhabited worlds we have encountered." Kexton waved dismissively. "Our power armor will compensate easily. Besides, if the gravity is truly problematic, it will affect the defenders more than us. We are trained warriors. They are soft civilians." The truth was that most Valtharian worlds had gentle gravity, around 0.7 times what humans considered normal. The Valtharian military had conquered dozens of species, but most came from similar garden worlds with comfortable environments. Earth's readings showed 1.0 gravity units, which seemed manageable. Velmore continued his briefing. "The humans appear to be physically weak, sir. They require elaborate clothing to protect them from their own weather. They cannot survive in their oceans without mechanical assistance. Many of their buildings are designed specifically to protect them from natural disasters, suggesting they are vulnerable to their own environment." "Excellent," Kexton rumbled. "A species that cannot handle its own world will certainly not handle us." "What about their military forces?" "Fragmented and poorly equipped," Velmore reported. "They have no unified command structure. Each nation maintains separate armies that often use different equipment and tactics. The largest military forces belong to nations called China, America, and Russia, but even these are nowhere near Valtharian technological levels." An intelligence officer approached with additional data. "Sir, we have intercepted some of their military communications. They appear to be aware that we are approaching, but their responses are chaotic. Some nations are attempting to prepare defenses, while others are trying to negotiate with each other. They show no signs of real unity." Kexton studied the tactical displays showing Earth's surface. The planet looked peaceful from space, with white clouds swirling over blue oceans and brown land masses. Cities sparkled like small jewels at night. It was hard to believe that billions of creatures lived down there, completely unaware of how their lives were about to change. "How many soldiers do we need?" Kexthon asked his planning staff. Senior Tactician Morven stepped forward with projections. Based on similar conquests, sir, I recommend 50,000 troops for the initial landing. This should be more than sufficient to secure major population centers and force a general surrender. The humans have approximately 8 billion individuals, but most are non-combatants. 50,000, Kexthon repeated thoughtfully. That seems almost excessive for such a primitive world. Better to be certain of quick victory than risk prolonged resistance, Morven replied. Once they see our superior technology in action, organized resistance should collapse within days. The Admiral walked to the main viewing screen and gazed at the distant star that was their destination. This would be his final campaign before retirement. 40 years of military service had brought him victory after victory. Earth would be the crown jewel of his career, an easy conquest to end on a high note. Very well, he announced. We will deploy 50,000 elite troops across their major population centers. Focus on cities in the northern regions of their largest land masses. Once we control their governments and communication centers, the rest will surrender quickly. The room erupted in approving sounds from his officers. Victory seemed certain. The humans had no space navy to challenge their approach. Their weapons were primitive. Their society was divided. Everything pointed to a swift and decisive Valtharian triumph. Unknown to the celebrating Valtharians, deep in an underground bunker beneath Seoul, General Tai Ho was meeting with his senior staff. The gray-haired Korean officer studied satellite images of the approaching alien fleet with calm determination. How long do we have? Asked Colonel Jae-sung, a younger man with sharp eyes and quick movements. 6 months until they reach orbit, Tae-ho replied. Possibly less if they accelerate. Major Yoonji, the only woman in the room, looked up from her tactical computer. Sir, we have been in contact with military leaders worldwide. The Americans, Russians, Chinese, and Europeans are all coordinating defensive preparations. For the first time in decades, Earth's nations are truly working together. Tae-ho nodded slowly. Good. We will need every advantage we can find. Outside the bunker across the globe, humanity was preparing. Weapons factories worked day and night. Soldiers trained in harsh conditions. Scientists studied every piece of data about the approaching enemy. The aliens expected to find a divided, weak species. They would discover something very different. The Valtharian fleet continued its approach, confident in easy victory. Admiral Kexthon retired to his quarters, already composing the victory message he would send home. In just a few months, Earth would be another conquered world in the vast Valtharian Empire. He could not have been more wrong. The Valtharian fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 312 warships dropped back into normal space, their hulls gleaming under the light of Sol. Fleet Admiral Kexthon stood on his command bridge, watching the blue-green planet grow larger on the main screen. Beautiful world, commented Captain Velmore. It will make a fine addition to the Empire. Kexthon nodded. Begin standard conquest protocols. Send the surrender demand. The communications officer, a young Valtharian with nervous movements, began broadcasting on all human frequencies. The message was simple and had worked on dozens of other worlds. Surrender now, or face complete destruction. Unknown. Primitive species of the third planet, the message began in broken human languages. You are now subjects of the Valtharian Empire. Cease all military activities immediately. Prepare for occupation forces. Resistance will result in the destruction of your civilization. The bridge crew waited for the expected response. Other species usually sent panicked messages begging for mercy. Some tried to negotiate. A few simply went silent in terror. None had ever responded with confidence. The reply from Earth came faster than expected. The voice was calm, professional, and completely unafraid. Unknown vessels, this is Captain Dong Hyun of the Earth Defense Corps. You have entered sovereign Earth space without permission. By authority of the United Earth Defense Council, I order you to withdraw immediately or face defensive action. The Valtharian bridge fell silent. Several officers looked at each other in confusion. Felmore was the first to speak. Sir, did they just threaten us? Kexthon's 4 eyes narrowed. In 40 years of conquest, no primitive species had ever spoken to him like this. Send another message. Make our superiority clear. The second transmission was harsher. Human creatures, you do not understand your situation? We possess weapons that can destroy your entire planet. Your primitive technology cannot harm us. Surrender now or watch your cities burn." The response came even faster this time, and it was not what anyone expected. "Unknown vessels, you have been warned. Maintain your current position while we verify your intentions. Any hostile action will be met with immediate retaliation." Commander Ziltek stepped forward. "Admiral, perhaps we should demonstrate our power. Show them what happens to those who refuse Valtharian authority." Kexthon considered this. The humans clearly did not understand their hopeless situation. A small demonstration would save lives by preventing pointless resistance. "Target their military installation," he ordered. "The large complex on the Korean peninsula. Minimal power, just enough to show them we are serious." The weapons officer began targeting procedures. The installation below looked typical for a primitive species. Rectangular buildings, simple defensive walls, primitive vehicles moving around. It would be destroyed in seconds by Valtharian plasma cannons. "Firing solution locked, Admiral." "Fire." A single plasma bolt lanced down from orbit. It struck the military base with tremendous force, vaporizing buildings and creating a crater half a mile wide. 847 human soldiers died instantly. The explosion could be seen from orbit as a bright flash against the planet's surface. Kexthon expected immediate surrender messages. Instead, something completely unexpected happened. Across Earth's surface, thousands of missile installations activated simultaneously. Launch silos opened like flowers blooming. Mobile launchers emerged from hidden positions. Submarines surfaced in oceans around the globe. In the space of 60 seconds, Earth transformed from a peaceful world into a bristling weapon. "Admiral," the sensor officer shouted, "I'm reading massive launch signatures from the planet's surface." The main screen switched to tactical display. Hundreds of small objects were rising from Earth, accelerating rapidly toward the Valtharian fleet. The missiles moved faster than expected for primitive chemical rockets, and their flight paths showed sophisticated guidance systems. "Impossible," Velmore breathed. "How did they coordinate this so quickly?" Lieutenant Boram sat in Earth Defense Station Gamma, buried deep beneath a mountain in Colorado. Her fingers moved across control panels as she watched targeting data stream across multiple screens. Months of preparation had led to this moment. "Target package Alpha is away," she reported to command. 637 missiles launched successfully. Impact in 4 minutes and 12 seconds. The missiles were not ordinary weapons. Earth's scientists had spent months studying long-range sensor data of the approaching alien ships. They had designed special nuclear warheads with enhanced penetration capabilities. More importantly, each missile carried advanced guidance computers that had been programmed with every detail about Valtharian technology that human intelligence could gather. Aboard the flagship, alarms began sounding. The weapons officer turned to Kexthon with worry in his voice. "Sir, these missiles are not following standard ballistic paths. They are actively maneuvering and appear to be adapting their approach vectors in real time." "Activate defensive systems," Kexthon ordered. "Primitive chemical explosives cannot penetrate our shields." The Valtharian fleet's defensive screens came online, creating shimmering barriers around each ship. Automated defense turrets began firing, trying to intercept the incoming missiles. Many of the human weapons were destroyed, but others adapted their flight patterns to avoid the defensive fire. The first impacts came like hammer blows. Nuclear explosions blossomed against Valtharian shields, each one carrying the force of a small star. The flagship shuddered under multiple hits. "Shields at 60%, reported the defense officer. "These weapons are more powerful than our intelligence indicated." More missiles struck home. The explosions were not just powerful, they were precisely targeted. The human weapons seemed to know exactly where Valtharian shields were weakest. Several smaller ships lost their protective barriers entirely. "How is this possible?" Ziltek demanded. "They should not have this level of targeting accuracy." The truth was both simple and terrifying. Earth's military had been monitoring the Valtharian fleet since it first appeared on long-range sensors. Human cryptographers had been working around the clock to break alien communication codes. Every transmission, every sensor sweep, every piece of electronic activity from the Valtharian ships had been analyzed by Earth's most advanced computers. The humans knew more about Valtharian technology than the Valtharians realized. They had identified shield frequencies, weapons positions, and structural weak points. The missile guidance systems had been programmed with all of this data. As the nuclear barrage continued, more alarming reports reached the flagship bridge. "Admiral, I'm detecting additional launch signatures," the sensor officer announced. "The humans appear to have secondary missile installations that were not visible on our initial scans." "How many more weapons do they have?" Kex then asked. "Unknown, sir, but they are continuing to launch new salvos every few minutes." The reality was that Earth had been preparing for this moment for 6 months. Every nation had contributed weapons, technology, and intelligence. The planet's entire industrial capacity had been focused on building as many missiles as possible. Underground factories had worked day and night. Hidden launch sites had been constructed on every continent. Captain Velmore received damage reports from across the fleet. "Sir, we have lost 12 ships entirely. 23 others have taken serious damage. These humans fight harder than any species we have encountered." Kex then stared at the tactical display in growing disbelief. The planet below continued launching missiles in carefully timed waves. Worse, human communication intercepts suggested they were just getting started. "Sir," the communications officer reported, "I am detecting transmissions between their military installations. They appear to be coordinating additional attacks." Another wave of missiles rose from Earth's surface. These ones were different, larger, faster, and carrying multiple warheads that separated during flight. The Valtharian defensive system struggled to track so many individual targets. "Admiral," Ziltek said quietly, "perhaps we should reconsider our approach. These humans are not responding like a primitive species." The words hung in the air like a challenge to everything the Valtharians believed about their superiority. Kexthan watched another series of nuclear explosions blossom against his fleet's shields. For the first time in his long military career, he wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. On Earth's surface, in bunkers and command centers around the globe, human military officers monitored the battle with grim satisfaction. The aliens had expected an easy victory. Instead, they had walked into a trap that had been 6 months in the making. General Te-Ho received reports from observation stations worldwide. The alien fleet is holding position but has taken significant damage. They appear to be reconsidering their invasion plans. Major Unji looked up from her communication console. "Sir, we are receiving requests for additional missile strikes from our allies. The Americans want to launch their Titan-class warheads. The Russians are requesting permission to activate their submarine-based systems." "Not yet," Te-Ho replied calmly. "Let them think about what they have learned. Sometimes the threat of greater force is more effective than the force itself." Fleet Admiral Kexthan stared at the damage report scrolling across his command screen. The human missile attack had been more effective than anything in his 40 years of military experience. But retreat was not an option. The Valtharian Empire did not back down from primitive worlds. "We deploy ground forces," he announced to his staff. "These humans may have effective orbital weapons, but they cannot have prepared for our elite soldiers. Once we control their major cities, their resistance will collapse." Captain Velmore hesitated. "Sir, perhaps we should study their capabilities further before—" "No," Kexthan cut him off. "Every moment we delay gives them more time to prepare. We strike now before they can organize better defenses." The deployment began immediately. 50,000 Valtharian soldiers loaded into drop pods across the fleet. These warriors represented the finest military force in the galaxy. Genetically enhanced, equipped with advanced power armor, and trained on a dozen different worlds, Captain Nixival led the assault force targeting Sol. His soldiers were confident as they prepared for drop. The humans had shown they could build effective missiles, but ground combat was different. No primitive species had ever successfully resisted Valtharian infantry. "Remember," Nixival addressed his troops, "these creatures are physically weak and technologically inferior. Expect minimal resistance once we demonstrate our superiority. Rules of engagement are flexible. Use whatever force necessary to secure objectives quickly." The drop pods launched like metal meteors toward Earth's surface. Inside each pod, Valtharian soldiers checked their weapons one final time. Their power armor would protect them from primitive human weapons while enhancing their strength and speed. Victory seemed certain. What they did not know was that Earth had been preparing for exactly this moment. Deep in the mountains outside Seoul, Sergeant Kyung-soo crouched with his squad of Korean Marines. They had been training in these hills for months, practicing tactics specifically designed to fight technologically superior enemies. The 40-year-old veteran had fought in 3 different conflicts, but never anything like this. "Remember what we learned," he told his men quietly. "Their armor is designed for energy weapons. Our bullets will punch right through. Stay low, use the terrain, and don't give them time to adapt." The drop pods streaked through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. Human air defense systems tried to intercept them, but most of the alien craft were too small and fast to target effectively. They struck the ground around major cities across the globe with tremendous force. Nixval's pod slammed into a park in central Seoul, creating a small crater. The hatch blew open and he stepped out, his power armor gleaming in the morning sun. Around him, other pods were landing and disgorging more Valtharian soldiers. The first thing he noticed was the weight. Earth's gravity was significantly stronger than he had expected. His power armor, designed for low-gravity worlds, suddenly felt heavy and awkward. Each step required more effort than normal. "Form defensive perimeter," he ordered his troops. "Secure the landing zone and prepare to advance on government buildings." That was when the trap sprung. Sergeant Kyung-soo had positioned his Marines on rooftops and in buildings surrounding the park. They had spent weeks studying every detail of the landing zone, preparing kill zones and escape routes. When the alien soldiers began moving into formation, the humans opened fire. The first shot came from Corporal Soo-jin, hidden on a building 600 meters away. Her high-powered rifle sent a tungsten core bullet through the faceplate of a Valtharian soldier before the alien even knew he was being targeted. The warrior dropped instantly, his advanced armor useless against kinetic weapons it was not designed to stop. Chaos erupted in the landing zone. More rifles opened fire from concealed positions. Valtharian soldiers tried to return fire with their energy weapons, but the beams could not penetrate the concrete and steel that the humans used for cover. "They are using primitive kinetic weapons," Nixval shouted into his radio. "Our armor cannot stop solid projectiles." The situation grew worse rapidly. The heavy gravity that seemed merely uncomfortable to the Valtharians was natural for the humans. Korean Marines moved with ease through terrain that slowed alien soldiers to awkward stumbles. Private Jin Ho rolled a grenade into a cluster of Valtharian troops. The explosion used Earth's oxygen-rich atmosphere to create a fireball that overwhelmed alien environmental systems. 3 soldiers fell, their armor smoking and damaged. But the real horror began when Sergeant Won-shik's demolition team joined the fight. The burly engineer had spent his career working with explosives in Korea's mining industry. He understood better than anyone how to weaponize Earth's natural chemistry. "Fire in the hole," Won-shik shouted as he detonated charges placed around a construction site. The explosion brought down a partially completed building, burying 6 Valtharian soldiers under tons of concrete and twisted metal. Nixval tried to rally his forces, but reports from other landing zones painted a similar picture. Human defenders were using every aspect of their world as a weapon. In Moscow, Valtharian troops found themselves caught in a blizzard that froze their equipment, while Russian soldiers attacked through the snow like ghosts. In New York, American forces had flooded subway tunnels, forcing aliens into kill zones where their superior technology meant nothing. In Beijing, Chinese soldiers used the city's massive population as cover, appearing from crowds of civilians to attack before disappearing again. The most disturbing reports came from smaller cities where individual humans were performing seemingly impossible feats. A single human soldier in Australia had reportedly destroyed an entire Valtharian squad using nothing but improvised explosives made from household chemicals. Commander Ziltek monitored the battle from orbit, his face growing pale as casualty reports mounted. "Sir, we are losing soldiers faster than any previous campaign." "These humans, they fight differently." "How differently?" Kexton demanded. "They do not retreat when wounded, sir. Standard doctrine suggests that injured combatants withdraw for medical treatment. These humans become more aggressive when hurt. We have multiple reports of critically injured humans continuing to fight until they die." In Seoul, this phenomenon was playing out in terrifying detail. Private Haiwan had been caught in an explosion that severed her left arm at the elbow. Instead of seeking medical aid, she used her remaining hand to arm a demolition charge. "For Earth," she screamed, detonating the explosive as Valtharian soldiers ran past her position. The blast collapsed part of a highway overpass, crushing the aliens beneath tons of reinforced concrete. Her sacrifice allowed Sergeant Kyung-soo's squad to advance to new positions. The Korean Marines moved through Seoul's urban landscape like predators, using every advantage their homeworld provided. These buildings are made of their natural materials, Kyung-soo explained to a younger soldier. Stone and metal that came from this planet. We know how to use them. The aliens don't. The truth was becoming clear to Valtharian commanders across Earth. Their soldiers had been trained to fight on garden worlds with gentle gravity and predictable environments. Earth was neither gentle nor predictable. Captain Nixaval found his remaining troops pinned down in a shopping district, taking fire from multiple directions. Every time they tried to advance, human defenders appeared from new positions. The aliens' superior technology meant nothing in close combat among Earth's dense urban structures. Request immediate extraction, he transmitted to orbit. The situation is untenable. These humans have turned their entire planet into a weapon. Similar requests flooded in from landing sites around the globe. In London, Valtharian forces were trapped in ancient tunnels that humans had been using for transportation for over a century. In Tokyo, aliens found themselves fighting in streets so narrow that their heavy armor was more hindrance than help. The breaking point came when reports reached the flagship of Valtharian soldiers who had simply stopped fighting. A group in the Amazon rainforest had barricaded themselves in their landing pods, refusing to venture into the hostile jungle where human defenders moved like shadows through vegetation that seemed designed to kill intruders. Sir, Velmore reported quietly, we have confirmation that several units are requesting permission to surrender to human forces. The words hung in the command center like a physical blow. In the entire history of the Valtharian Empire, elite soldiers had never requested to surrender to a primitive species. Kexton looked at the tactical displays showing Earth's surface. What should have been green zones under Valtharian control showed nothing but red, contested areas where his forces were pinned down, surrounded, or destroyed. How many have we lost? He asked. Approximately 60% of ground forces or casualties are missing, Ziltek replied. The remainder are requesting immediate evacuation. On Earth's surface, Major Yoon Seo monitored alien communications from her underground bunker. The Korean intelligence officer had been translating Valtharian transmissions since the invasion began. Sir, she reported to General Tae-ho, the alien commanders are describing us as void-cursed death spawn and creatures of the killing world. Their ground forces appear to be in complete disorder. Tae-ho nodded grimly. Maintain defensive positions. Do not pursue retreating enemies unnecessarily. 3 days had passed since the failed Valtharian invasion began, and Fleet Admiral Kexton could barely recognize the confident force he had led to Earth. His ships remained in orbit, but his ground forces were scattered, demoralized, and in many cases, simply missing. The reports coming from the planet's surface read like horror stories. Elite Valtharian soldiers, the finest warriors in the galaxy, were hiding in caves and abandoned buildings. Many had stopped responding to communications entirely. Others sent desperate requests for immediate evacuation. Captain Velmore entered the command center with the latest casualty reports. His usually composed face showed strain and exhaustion. Sir, we have lost contact with another 12 squads. Last transmission indicated they were being hunted by human special forces. Kexton studied the tactical display. Red markers showed the last known positions of missing Valtharian units. They were scattered across Earth's surface like drops of blood, with no pattern or strategic value. His army had become prey. On Earth's surface, Captain Minho crouched in the ruins of what had once been downtown Seoul. The 35-year-old Korean Special Forces officer moved through the destroyed cityscape like a ghost, leading a small team of elite soldiers who had been systematically hunting alien stragglers for the past 2 days. Target confirmed, whispered Corporal Yeon-soo through the radio. 3 aliens approximately 200 meters northeast of your position. They appear to be searching for shelter. Minho signaled his team to spread out. They had perfected these tactics during months of preparation, studying everything known about Valtharian equipment and behavior. The aliens were dangerous when fighting in organized groups, but alone and frightened they made mistakes. The weather was working in humanity's favor. A thick fog had rolled in from the coast, reducing visibility to less than 50 meters. The moisture interfered with Valtharian thermal sensors, while human fighters moved through it with ease. Guided by equipment designed to work in Earth's chaotic climate, Lieutenant Bo Young, the team's sniper, found a position in the ruins of an office building. Through her scope, she could see 3 Valtharian soldiers moving cautiously through the streets below. Their power armor was damaged and their movements showed exhaustion and fear. "They are lost," she reported quietly. "No organization, no coordination, just trying to find somewhere to hide." This was the pattern they had observed across the globe. Valtharian forces that had landed with confidence and superior technology were now reduced to scattered survivors, struggling to adapt to a world that seemed designed to kill them. The aliens were not prepared for Earth's environment. Their equipment kept malfunctioning in Earth's humid atmosphere. Their armor was too heavy for the planet's gravity. Most critically, they could not understand how humans seemed to thrive in conditions that left Valtharians exhausted and disoriented. Captain Minho moved closer to the alien position, using the fog and rubble for cover. Through his earpiece, he could hear similar operations happening around the world. American Rangers were hunting alien survivors in the Rocky Mountains. British SAS were tracking stragglers through London's ancient tunnels. Russian Spetsnaz were finding alien soldiers who had frozen to death in the Siberian cold. But the most disturbing reports came from places where Valtharian soldiers had simply given up fighting. Major Yunseo sat in her intelligence bunker, translating intercepted alien communications. The messages painted a picture of complete psychological collapse among the invading forces. "Sir," she reported to General Tae-ho, "we are intercepting transmissions from a group of aliens who have barricaded themselves in a subway tunnel beneath Tokyo. They have been there for 18 hours and refuse to come to the surface. What are they saying?" Tae-ho asked. "They are describing Earth as a cursed death world and referring to humans as demon spawn who thrive in killing conditions. The leader of the group is requesting permission to surrender to local authorities." This was unprecedented in Valtharian military history. Elite soldiers did not surrender to primitive species. They did not hide from inferior enemies. Yet across Earth, this pattern was repeating. In Australia, a squad of Valtharian Marines had been found by local farmers, sitting in an empty field with their weapons laid down, waiting for human forces to find them. When questioned, they spoke of creatures in the bush that made no sound, but left their companions dead with single precise strikes. The creatures were Australian SAS soldiers, who moved through their native environment like deadly shadows. But to aliens accustomed to garden worlds, they might as well have been supernatural predators. Lieutenant Jun Ho led a reconnaissance unit through the mountains outside Seoul, tracking alien survivors who had fled into the wilderness. His team had been moving for 6 hours through terrain that would challenge even experienced human hikers. "Contact," he whispered into his radio. "Found their camp." Through binoculars, he observed 12 Valtharian soldiers huddled around a small heating device. They had removed their helmets, revealing alien faces marked with exhaustion and fear. Their equipment was scattered and poorly maintained. These were not the confident warriors who had landed 3 days earlier. "They looked defeated," observed Sergeant Tae Young, a veteran mountain warfare specialist. "No discipline, no organization, just survivors trying to stay alive." The truth was that Valtharian soldiers were psychologically breaking down. They had been trained to fight enemies with similar technology and tactics. Earth provided neither. Every aspect of the planet seemed hostile. The weather changed without warning. The gravity was crushing, and the defenders used the world itself as a weapon. Back in orbit, Commander Ziltek reviewed reports from the fleet's medical bay. Valtharian soldiers who had been evacuated from Earth's surface were exhibiting severe psychological trauma. Many refused to speak about their experiences on the planet. The survivors describe humans who continue fighting even when mortally wounded, reported the chief medical officer. They speak of enemies who appear from nowhere, kill with single strikes, then vanish again. Several soldiers claim the humans were smiling while fighting. This last detail was particularly disturbing to Valtharian psychology. Most species fought out of necessity or fear. Humans seemed to enjoy the challenge of combat, becoming more effective as battles intensified. Dr. Velzen, the fleet's chief psychologist, had interviewed dozens of survivors. His conclusions were troubling. "Admiral," he reported privately to Kexthan, "these humans do not fight like any species we have encountered. They appear to have evolved in an environment so hostile that constant mortal danger is normal for them. What we consider extreme combat conditions, they consider daily life." The implications were staggering. Earth was not just another inhabited world. It was a planet that had forged its dominant species into natural warriors through millions of years of environmental pressure. On the surface, Captain Minho's team had successfully captured the 3 Valtharian stragglers without firing a shot. The aliens surrendered immediately when confronted, offering no resistance. Through translation software, they begged to be taken to a secure location, away from Earth's killing environment. Similar scenes were playing out globally. Human forces were finding alien soldiers who had simply stopped fighting, overwhelmed by a world they could not understand or survive in alone. The breaking point came when long-range sensors detected Valtharian distress beacons from remote areas around the globe. Aliens were activating emergency signals not because they were under attack, but because they were lost, frightened, and unable to cope with Earth's natural environment. In the Amazon rainforest, Brazilian forces found a complete Valtharian squad that had been missing for 2 days. The aliens were dehydrated, suffering from infections caused by native plants, and showed signs of severe psychological stress. They had not encountered human defenders. The jungle itself had defeated them. Colonel Jae Sung coordinated the global situation from his command center in Seoul. Reports flowed in from every continent, painting the same picture. The Valtharian invasion force was not being destroyed in battle. It was dissolving from the simple challenge of existing on Earth. "Sir," reported Major Unji, "we have confirmation that organized Valtharian resistance has ceased in all major population centers. Remaining alien forces are either in hiding or requesting extraction." The truth was becoming clear to military commanders on both sides. Humans had not defeated the Valtharians through superior technology or numbers. They had won by being perfectly adapted to a world that was too hostile for the invaders to survive. Lieutenant Boram monitored orbital communications from her deep space tracking station. The conversations between Valtharian ships painted a picture of a military force in complete disarray. "Admiral," she reported, "alien fleet communications indicate they are preparing for full evacuation of ground forces. Multiple ship commanders are recommending immediate withdrawal from Earth orbit." Above, Fleet Admiral Kexton faced the most humiliating moment of his long career. His elite forces had been defeated not by superior enemies, but by a planet whose very existence was inimical to Valtharian life. The humans had not just defended their world. They had demonstrated that Earth was their weapon, a world that created warriors simply by requiring survival. Fleet Admiral Kexton stood in the medical bay of his flagship, staring at the broken remnants of his elite invasion force. The soldiers lying on treatment beds were not just physically wounded. They were psychologically shattered by their encounter with Earth and its inhabitants. Dr. Velzen moved between patients, his medical scanner recording symptoms that had never been seen before in Valtharian military history. "Admiral, this soldier has been conscious for 6 hours, but he will not stop speaking about humans who smile when they bleed." The young Valtharian Marine stared at the ceiling with wide, fearful eyes. "They kept fighting," he whispered. "Lost limbs, massive wounds, should have been dead. But they kept smiling and fighting. How do you defeat something that enjoys pain?" Similar testimonies came from survivors across the medical bay. Veterans of dozen campaigns spoke in trembling voices about a species that seemed to grow stronger as battles became more desperate. The humans had not just defended their world, they had demonstrated a fundamental difference in their relationship with violence and survival. Captain Velmore entered with the latest evacuation reports. His normally composed demeanor had cracked over the past week of catastrophic losses. "Sir, we have successfully extracted 60% of surviving ground forces. The remainder are either missing, captured, or refusing evacuation." "Refusing?" Kexton asked in disbelief. "Yes, sir. Several squads have requested to remain on Earth's surface. They claim they cannot face the shame of returning home after being defeated by a primitive species." The implications were staggering. Valtharian military culture had never encountered such complete psychological defeat. These soldiers preferred exile on a hostile alien world to facing their own people, with news of their failure. Lieutenant Nexvar, a communications specialist, approached with an intercepted human transmission. "Admiral, you need to hear this message. It is being broadcast on all human military frequencies." The voice that came through the speakers was calm, professional, and completely confident. It belonged to Captain Dong-hyun, the same human who had first warned them to withdraw from Earth space. "Attention, Valtharian fleet. This is Captain Dong Hyun of Earth Defense Corps. Your ground forces have been neutralized. Your invasion has failed. We are prepared to offer humanitarian assistance for evacuation of your surviving personnel, but you have 12 Earth hours to begin withdrawal procedures. What followed was even more disturbing than the ultimatum itself. The human captain began listing details about Valtharian fleet positions, ship classifications, and weapon capabilities that should have been impossible for a primitive species to obtain. Your flagship Dominion's Edge is positioned at coordinates that we have already targeted with orbital defense platforms. Your secondary command vessel Void Piercer shows hull stress from our earlier missile attacks that compromises its structural integrity. We have identified 47 additional tactical vulnerabilities across your fleet. Commander Ziltek turned pale as the broadcast continued. Sir, they know more about our ships than some of our own crew members. How is this possible? The answer came from an unexpected source. A young ensign in the communications section had been analyzing human transmissions for days, slowly learning their languages and technology. Admiral, I believe the humans have been monitoring and analyzing every electronic emission from our fleet since we arrived. They have reverse-engineered our communications, scanned our hull compositions, and mapped our defensive capabilities. In 1 week? Fillmore asked incredulously. Sir, the ensign continued nervously, I believe they began this analysis when we first appeared on their long-range sensors 6 months ago. They have been preparing for our arrival with unprecedented thoroughness. This revelation struck the Valtharian command staff like a physical blow. They had assumed their technological superiority would provide overwhelming advantage. Instead, the humans had used those 6 months to turn Valtharian technology against itself. The human broadcast was not finished. Captain Dong Hyun's voice continued with an offer that no Valtharian commander had ever received from a defeated enemy. Admiral, your soldiers fought with courage and honor, even while following illegal orders to invade our world. Those who have been captured are being treated according to Earth's Geneva Conventions. They are receiving medical care and will be returned to you unharmed. We take no pleasure in the defeat of brave warriors who were following commands. The medical bay fell silent as even the wounded Valtharian soldiers stopped their murmuring to listen. However, the broadcast continued. You must understand that Earth is classified as a Class 3 in Deathworld for excellent reasons. We are not a primitive species. We are a species that evolved on a world that kills the weak simply by existing. Every day of our lives is a survival challenge that would destroy most galactic civilizations. In the deep bunkers beneath Sol, General Tejo listened to his communications officer broadcast the message his staff had spent hours crafting. They wanted the aliens to understand that humanity's victory was not based on primitive luck or superior numbers. We do not seek galactic conquest, the message continued. We are content with our single world, because it has made us into exactly what we need to be. But any species that comes to our home with weapons and conquest in mind will discover why Earth's children are survivors first, diplomats second, and warriors by necessity. Major Boram monitored the alien fleet's response from her orbital tracking station. Sir, multiple Valtharian ships are powering up their engines. It appears they are preparing for immediate departure. The final part of Captain Dong Hyun's message was perhaps the most important. To any Valtharian personnel who wish to remain on Earth for cultural exchange or to study our world, you are welcome to do so. Several of your soldiers have already requested asylum, and we will honor those requests. We judge individuals by their actions, not their species. This unprecedented offer of mercy to defeated invaders reflected humanity's complex approach to conflict. They could be utterly ruthless when threatened, but equally capable of compassion toward former enemies. Aboard the flagship, Fleet Admiral Kexton made the most difficult decision of his military career. Signal the fleet. All ships prepare for immediate departure from this system. Sir, Commander Ziltek asked quietly, what do we report to High Command? Kexton looked around the medical bay at his broken soldiers, then at the tactical displays showing Earth's defensive installations still actively tracking his fleet. The humans were allowing him to retreat with dignity, but the implied threat was unmistakable. We report the truth, he said finally. We encountered a species that has weaponized their entire planet simply by living on it. Earth is not a world to be conquered. It is a world that creates conquerors. As the evacuation proceeded, something unexpected happened. 47 Valtharian soldiers requested permission to remain on Earth's surface. They spoke of a desire to understand how humans had achieved such perfect adaptation to their environment. Private Kexmar, a young soldier who had fought in Seoul, addressed his commanding officer through a medical bay communicator. "Sir, I request permission to study with these humans. They have shown us forms of warfare and survival that our military colleges never imagined. I believe the Valtharian Empire could learn much from them." Similar requests came from soldiers who had been captured and treated with unexpected kindness by human forces. They spoke of medical care that surpassed Valtharian standards, of human soldiers who had risked their own lives to rescue wounded aliens from dangerous positions. The final humiliation came when Captain Dong-hyun sent a personal message to Fleet Admiral Kexthan as the Valtharian fleet prepared to depart. "Admiral, your military reputation precedes you. 40 years of successful campaigns across the galaxy is an impressive record. We hope you understand that our resistance was not personal. We simply cannot allow our world to be conquered. But we respect worthy opponents." The message continued with an offer that would have been unthinkable a week earlier. "If you or your people ever wish to visit Earth peacefully, for trade, cultural exchange, or scientific cooperation, you will be welcomed as honored guests. We prefer to make friends of former enemies when possible." As the last evacuation ship departed Earth's atmosphere, Kexthan stood before the great viewing screen watching the blue-green world shrink in the distance. His 40-year military career was over, his reputation in ruins, his elite forces scattered to the winds. Yet as he prepared his final report for the Valtharian High Command, he found himself writing something he had never expected. Personal note: the humans have extended an invitation for cultural exchange. Several of our surviving soldiers have requested permission to return to Earth, not as conquerors, but as students. I find myself understanding why. In 40 years of military service, I have never encountered a species more perfectly adapted to warfare, nor one more capable of mercy toward defeated enemies. He paused, considering his next words carefully. Earth is not a planet with life. Earth is a planet that weaponizes life itself. Every creature that survives there becomes a weapon simply by existing. The humans are not warriors because they choose to be. They are warriors because their world made them into warriors.